Listen closely, for I will begin with a paradox that slips through the fingers like smoke. The more a man reveals his thoughts, the less he truly thinks. And yet the more he hides, the more others believe they can see him clearly. Such is the delicious comedy of human perception, a masquerade where every mask is mistaken for a face. I speak to you now as one who has watched men cling to the idea that transparency is virtue, that unveiling one's mind's an act of trust, intimacy, or moral purity. But I have also watched those same men crumble the moment their honesty becomes a weapon in another's hand. You may call it cunning. I call it. You may call it secrecy. I call it freedom. Consider this. A thought is born in silence, fragile as a newborn flame. Expose it too early, and a careless breath from another may extinguish it. Let it grow in the darkness of your own mind, however, and it becomes a torch, not easily put out, not easily misinterpreted, not easily controlled. Do you see the shape of it? Your thoughts are your last private kingdom. Guard them, or you will rule nothing. When I walked through courts filled with flatterers and schemers, I observed a universal truth. The man who speaks quickly is predictable. The man who speaks fully is manipulable. The man who lets his thoughts flow freely before others is like a fortress that announces its weaknesses before the siege even begins. But the silent man, he is feared. Not because he seeks fear, but because he cannot be placed, categorized, or disarmed. And why do humans long to be understood so desperately? Because the ego trembles at the prospect of being invisible. You want to be seen, yes, but only the shape of you, not the skeleton. Only the heat of your fire, not the wood that feeds it. What I am telling you is not cruelty. It is liberation from the tyranny of others' interpretations. For once you hand your thoughts over, they cease to be yours. They become clay in another's hands, molded into shapes you may not recognize. There is a certain sweetness in secrecy, like ripe fruit kept under one's tongue. It nourishes without display. It strengthens without applause. And in its quiet way, it teaches you something precious, that your inner world is not a marketplace, and your mind is not obligated to offer itself for inspection. So let us descend further into this labyrinth where silence is not emptiness, but power waiting to crystallize. Imagine walking into a room where every person announces himself with words, torrents of opinions, confessions, explanations, self-justifications. They spill their minds like merchants spilling grain onto a scale, begging for someone to declare its worth. But you carry your thoughts like sealed treasure. No jingling, no clatter. No need to prove their value by exhibition. Suddenly, every gaze bends toward you. Not because you seek attention, but because you deny the common hunger for immediate revelation. Mystery is not an illusion, it is a discipline. And discipline is rare. It unsettles people. It forces them to confront the vast abyss of what they don't know about you. And that abyss, my friend, is more commanding than the loudest declaration. You may ask, why does the silent man command more power than the one who bears his thoughts plainly? Because people fear uncertainty more than they fear a knife. A knife can be seen, measured, dodged. But a mind concealed, that is a shadow capable of anything. It might contain softness or steel, benevolence or strategy, but because others cannot grasp it, they approach with caution, respect, and a trace of trembling curiosity. Let me tell you a story without names, for names distract from essence. There was once a ruler who revealed his thoughts openly, believing honesty would earn loyalty. Instead, his transparency became a map, and that map led his enemies straight into the heart of his vulnerabilities. Another ruler, silent and watchful, spoke little, revealed less. His advisors speculated, doubted, worried, adjusted themselves constantly, not because he commanded it, but because they could not decipher him. The first ruler performed his mind, the second ruled through its opacity. In the theater of life, reveal too much and you become predictable. Predictable, and you become governable. Governable, and you are no longer the author of your fate. This truth extends beyond courts and thrones. It seeps into friendships, love, and even in affection. Full disclosure often leads to chains. When someone knows precisely how you think, they begin to expect you, to script you, to mold you to their comfort. But when you retain the right to your own private thoughts, relationships remain alive, not rigid, not rehearsed, but dynamic. Because you are not an open book, but a living story still being written, still being. You see, secrecy is not deception, it is sovereignty. Now let us move into the deeper realms, where thought stealth becomes not just strategy, but self-preservation, even self-revelation of a subtler kind. Let us continue, then, into the chambers where this principle becomes not merely a tactic, but a mirror reflecting the architecture of your own being. For what are thoughts, truly? They are not fixed stones. They are rivers, shifting, swelling, receding, reshaping their banks with each passing hour. To reveal them prematurely is to pretend they are finished, complete, authoritative. But they are none of these things. They are whispers of becoming. And becoming requires the shelter of quiet. Have you ever noticed how a thought changes the moment you speak it aloud? How its edges soften, or sharpen, or distort entirely under the weight of another's gaze? This is because expression is not benign. It is an alchemy that transforms the substance of the mind. And if you reveal too early, the transformation is not your own. It is influenced, redirected, contaminated by the interpretations of others. Thus, silence is not concealment, it is incubation. Let your thoughts mature in solitude. Let them stretch in the dark, unseen, until they are strong enough to step into the world without trembling. If you must reveal something, reveal only what has become unassailable. But you fear this, do you not? You fear being misunderstood, or worse, being invisible. Yet understand this. The less you reveal, the more others project their fantasies upon you. They fill the void you leave with their own desires, fears, thoughts, and assumptions. And whether their projections are flattering or damning matters little. What matters is that you remain unbound by their definitions. There is power in being undefined. To be understood fully is to be pinned to a board like an insect, catalogued, labeled, and thereafter expected to flutter in predictable patterns. But to remain partially obscured is to remain rediputial, free to change, free to retreat, free to advance, free to reinvent the interior mechanisms of your life without announcing each adjustment to the world. And listen carefully now. When you do not reveal what you think, you learn what others think. They rush to fill the silence. They expose themselves. They declare their motives, their insecurities, their loyalties, their limits. Your quiet becomes their confession. This is a subtle dance, one in which your silence plays the lead role. You, or without moving, draw movement from others. You, without revealing, reveal everything. And in this dance, you begin to see the paradox at the center of all human relations. The one who speaks least understands most. But come, let us walk even deeper, into the tender, trembling regions where secrecy touches love, desire, and the ache to be known without being consumed. Now we enter the territory where the heart beats louder than strategy, where even the most disciplined mind trembles before the warmth of another human presence. Here, secrecy and desire begin to braid together, forming a rope that can pull you upward or bind you entirely. For even in love, especially in love, the impulse to reveal everything arises like a fever. You wish to offer your inner world as a gift, believing vulnerability a kind of devotion. And yet, when you give too much of your mind away, you do not create intimacy. You create dependence. And dependence, though sweet in its infancy, soon becomes a corridor without exits. Understand me, I do not speak against tenderness. I speak against the surrender of your inner realm. For in my lifetime, I watched lovers destroy themselves with honesty, not because the truth was poisonous, but because the other person was not prepared to hold it gently. When you expose every fear, every hope, every soft underbelly of your reasoning, you make the other person responsible for your stability. And no one, no matter how devoted, can bear that weight without corrupting it. Too much disclosure does not create closeness. It creates burden. And burden is the first crack through which resentment leaks. But if you keep a sanctuary within you, a chamber no one else enters, then even love becomes spacious. You can offer affection without offering your entire sense of self. You can give warmth without giving the key to your inner architecture. You can be known, yet not dismantled. Do you see the beauty of this balance? A love in which you remain whole, not hollowed. A bond where you share your life, not surrender your mind. For when someone believes they know all your thoughts, they cease to see you as a mystery and begin to see you as a certainty. And a certainty is quickly taken for granted. But a person who retains something of themselves, something quietly luminous, something unspoken, remains alive in the imagination. They are never reduced to a familiar map. They remain a living landscape, full of hills and shadows and secret streams. It is not deception to maintain an inner world that belongs to you alone. It is the only way to keep your spirit from dissolving into another's expectations. And perhaps you have noticed this. Those who reveal the least feel the most deeply. For their emotions are not diluted by constant explanation. They are concentrated, potent, guarded by silence. Let us continue, then, to the deeper strata, where secrecy becomes not only protection, but a form of self-mastery. Now step with me into the innermost chamber, the place where secrecy ceases to be a shield against others and becomes a refinement of the self. For if you master your silence only to manipulate the world, you have learned merely half the art. The deeper mastery lies in observing your own thoughts without the compulsive urge to proclaim them. Most people speak not to communicate, but to relieve themselves of the pressure of thinking. They spill their ideas prematurely because they cannot bear the solitude required to shape them. They chase relief, not clarity. And so their thoughts remain half-formed creatures, dragged into the light before they can stand on their own legs. But when you resist the impulse to announce your every insight, something extraordinary occurs. Your thoughts begin to mature into truths. You begin to see which ideas wither overnight and which endure. You begin to distinguish between impulses born of vanity and those born of wisdom. You begin to hear, beneath the noise of your emotions, the deeper rhythm of your intuition, a quiet pulse that does not shout, but directs. To keep your thoughts private is to build an inner court where you are both ruler and advisor. Here, you question yourself fiercely, celebrate yourself sparingly, and consult your own judgment before offering it to the world. This is self-governance, the rarest form of power, because it demands you confront your illusions rather than exporting them to others. Consider how often people speak out of fear of silence, fear of loneliness, fear of being perceived as uncertain. But uncertainty is not a flaw. It is the birthplace of understanding. When you allow uncertainty to exist unspoken, you give it permission to evolve into insight. If instead you confess it immediately, you freeze it in its weakest form. There is elegance in withholding. Not the elegance of pretense, but of patience. For it is a grave mistake to believe that silence is a void. Silence is a forge. Every unspoken thought is tempered in its fire until its true nature reveals itself. And often, the thoughts you wish to share most eagerly become, with time, the ones you are grateful to have kept hidden. And notice this too. When you do not reveal your mind constantly, your words gain weight. People listen more carefully. They remember more sharply. You transform each sentence into a deliberate act, not a reflex. You speak less, but you are more heard more. Such is the paradox of restraint. By saying little, you say everything. We are not done yet. There is one more descent, into the realm where secrecy becomes a spiritual discipline, a way of harmonizing with life's unpredictable tides. Come with me now into the quietest territory, the realm where secrecy stops being about strategy, or power, or protection, and becomes something far more intimate, a way of aligning yourself with the deeper currents of existence. For life itself is a master of concealment. The seed hides its sprout until the soil is ready. The storm gathers its strength invisibly before the first crack of thunder. Even the sunrise reveals itself slowly, almost shyly, as if reluctant to expose its brilliance all at once. Why then should you, a creature born of these same rhythms, rush to reveal what is still forming within you? To conceal your thoughts is not to resist life, it is to imitate it. It is to trust timing. It is to understand that everything ripens in silence before it is worthy of being seen. But here is the paradox. When you guard your inner world, you do not retreat from life. You move more deeply into it. You listen more closely because you are not busy performing your thoughts. You observe more sharply because you are not eager to be observed. You merge with the flow of events, not as a pawn reacting, but as an aware presence adapting. And this awareness softens you, not weakens, softens. For secrecy, when practiced with grace rather than fear, becomes a surrender to the reality that not everything must be known. Not by others, and not even by yourself. Some questions are meant to float. Some desires are meant to wander. Some insights must be carried like a lantern whose full glow you might never see, and that is fine. Life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a tide to be entered. When you stop displaying your thoughts, you realize how many of them were merely attempts to control life, to pin it down, to predict outcomes that were never yours to dictate. Silence reveals this. Silence unravels the illusion that total understanding is necessary for peace. In that silence, you discover a new posture, a kind of relaxed vigilance. You watch the world without grasping at it. You feel your opinions rise and fall like waves without needing to shout them into the air. You begin to trust the mysterious unfolding of your own nature. And in that trust, something miraculous happens. You become impossible to shake. For the person who depends on others to validate their thoughts is fragile. But the one who nurtures their mind privately grows roots so deep that no storm can uproot them. They face uncertainty with steady breath because they know the most sacred parts of themselves remain untouched by the chaos outside. Let us take one final step, then, into the closing revelation, where secrecy becomes not just wisdom, but liberation. Now, let us walk together into the final chamber. Not a throne room, not a battlefield, but a quiet clearing where the air itself feels cleansed of pretense. Here, the lesson reveals its last face, gentle yet unyielding. For all along, you may have believed I was teaching you how to outmaneuver others, how to navigate the sharp corners of ambition and human unpredictability. And though that is part of it, the deeper truth is this: to keep your thoughts hidden is to reclaim your life from the grasp of the world. Not to dominate others, but to stop letting others dominate the tender core of your being. Most people live as if every inner movement must be declared, justified, explained. They fear the silence of their own minds because they have never sat within it long enough to hear its music. So they turn their thoughts outward, offering them for evaluation, for approval, for applause. And with every confession, they give away a portion of themselves. I'm not asking you to become stone. I am asking you to become water. Water does not announce its depth. It does not explain its currents. It does not justify the stillness on its surface or the storms in its belly. It simply holds itself, fully. Spectacle. And because it reveals nothing, it reflects everything. This is what your mind becomes when you stop exposing it carelessly. A surface calm enough to reflect the world, and a depth known only to you. And perhaps now you see the highest purpose of secrecy. It is not manipulation. It is not superiority. It is not coldness. It is freedom. Freedom from being predictable. Freedom from being controlled. Freedom from the exhausting need to be understood at every moment. And from this freedom comes a new kind of presence, one that is both soft and unshakable. When you no longer rush to reveal yourself, you begin to realize you were never meant to be fully grasped by others. You are not a theorem. You are not a confession. You are not a neatly labeled box. You are a shifting constellation of desires, fears, strengths, contradictions, and possibilities. And constellations are not meant to be held, only witnessed. So let your mind remain wide and private like the night sky. Let your thoughts drift across it like stars, visible only when you choose, and even then, never revealing the whole map. Do not fear being enigmatic. The world does not need to understand you to benefit from your presence. You do not need to be deciphered to be real. Let your silence be your sanctuary. Let your secrecy be your sober companion. Let your unspoken thoughts be the garden where your future grows. And as you walk forward from this moment into your relationships, your ambitions, your uncertainties, carry this truth like a quiet ember behind your ribs. What you keep within yourself can never be taken from you. What you reveal can never be taken back. So choose with care, and let your mind remain your own. In this, you will find a peace that no praise can offer, and a power that no enemy can erode. Go then, not loudly, not triumphantly, but with the calm, immovable clarity of one who belongs first to himself.